So I'll be sitting for my exam to be an analyst. Behavior analyst is what I'm trying to be. I'll be sitting for it in November, so I don't have a life for the next 2 months. Let's see here, what do I have written down? Okay, how I got into the field. Okay, so before I finished my bachelor's degree, I was like, okay, what population do you want to work with? You know, I was like, I actually bounced all over. I was biology, psychology, business, biology, psychology. So I was all over. But I was like, psychology, okay, yes. What population do you want to work with? So I was like, I'm very interested with autism, very interested with schizophrenia. So I tried, this was the summer before I was graduating. I graduated in August. So I was like, okay, schizophrenia, let's do it. These folks are awesome, they're out of touch with reality, but they're brilliant somehow, and it's genetic. I was like, let's do it. So I worked at this place called Bonatera. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it or not. But it's essentially this home for schizophrenics, and it's very private. At the time that I was working there, there were 15 clients, I believe. So very private, large, like massive land. And they all have there's little buildings, and they all have their rooms, and they can all decorate the way they want. And we take them to outings, hang out with them, have conversations. I had some of the best conversations ever. Actually, one of my clients was the valedictorian of UT back in '79. So had some really great conversations. And so, sorry, get me off guard. Had some really good conversations, and so I'm working there. I realized very quickly that it's not for me. It's a quality of life center. So our job is to make them comfortable. Our job is to literally just have them enjoy their life, because this is where their family sent them. And I was like, man, I could volunteer here, I have a good time hanging out here, but I don't know about, career path-wise, if this is what I want to do. So that day, I was like, oh my gosh, no. So I started looking, okay, what are their jobs in schizophrenia, or with schizophrenic population? There weren't many given my credentials. So I was like, oh man, okay, autism. I've always been like, what is that? Every time I ask that, I get a different response. So I Googled jobs with autistic people, or something like that. And there was a few that came up. It was like teacher. I was like, no, that's not really what I want to do. OT specialist. I thought about it, but then again, I didn't have my bachelor's degree yet, so I couldn't really do.
OT specialist?
Oh, occupational therapy. So it has to do. We're actually in network with a lot of OTs. If like a kid walks a little funny, we work with it. If they don't have the right motor movements to chew their food properly, they work on that. So kind of gross motor movements, which are like large movements as opposed to fine motor movements, which I'll get into a little bit later. But yeah, so there was that, and I was like, thought about it, but I can't I can't practice right now. I can observe and I can volunteer, but I can't work. So then there's ABA clinic here, ABA clinic there, and I'm like, okay, what is ABA? So I just YouTubed it really quickly, got it all together, and applied to several different clinics here. And a lot of them required at least 2 years of experience with autistic children, or your bachelor's degree. I didn't have either, so I was like, okay, well, hopefully I can kill it in the interview. Got a couple of offers. This one happened to pay me the most, so I took it at Children's Autism Center. It's still there. So I took it, and that was the start of this whole thing. And with a lot of my colleagues and stuff, they stumble into it as well. So it's not necessarily a profession that somebody, now it's becoming a lot more popular, but even a few years ago, that somebody looks for and tries to find. A lot of the people in the field were like, oh, somebody told me about it, so I checked it out. Or I was talking to somebody interesting and they told me, oh, you can work with autistic children this way. So you kind of stumble, a lot of us have stumbled into it.
Are there people without degrees like yours working at the children's office?
No, you need to have some sort of background. So psychology, child development, education we have actually. Teachers can actually be very hard, they can be hard to train because in the school system, I work in a clinic, in the school system, it's a lot different. It's hard to communicate between analyst and teacher, and the teacher's dealing with so many other kids that they can't necessarily accommodate, and so at one point I'll do my civic duty, I feel like, to work in the school system, but for now, right now it's a lot, at least for me. But, okay, so, I've gone over. Okay, so autism spectrum disorder. Okay, so you guys are here probably because you're interested in it. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear autism? Anyone?
Somebody without like good social skills.
Okay. All right.
The neurotypes book.
The what?
The neurotypes book.
Okay.
Something.
Yeah, okay.
People will sometimes get overwhelmed by stimulus.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Not bad, actually. Not bad. So, yes, it's called spectrum disorder for a reason. For example, I have a 6-year-old who, and I can't say names because of ethics, but he has very limited speech, has come a long way, communicates with one-word phrases, and we're getting him to start to play with kids, but he doesn't really want to do it. If it were up to him, he would spray water in the air or spit in the air. He loves to watch things fall. So if it were up to him, all day long, spraying water up in the air and staring at it, spraying water up in the air and staring at it, spitting in the air and staring at it. We've actually gotten that under control, so he doesn't do that anymore. So we've got this kiddo, right, who's 6 years old and really just doesn't want to hang out with people. And then we've got this other 6-year-old who is very high functioning, was given the Aspergers diagnosis before it was taken out of the DSM-5. Now it's all under one diagnosis. But so we've got this really high functioning kid, very intelligent, knows everything you could possibly think of. Or he wants to be, you ask him what he wants to be, he says an entomologist. So he wants to be, that's what he wants to do. It's amazing. Can tell you about species of every spider, the most common species in Texas, and he's an amazing person. We've got these two 6-year-olds, right? Completely different, and he can speak in full sentences, but they both have the same diagnoses, autism spectrum disorder. So it's really tricky. You know, you've got the same age, but two completely different people. So, yes.
Was there a motivation behind like redistributing that categorization so that everyone falls under that? Like,
I'm not too sure why exactly they did that. It was broken up into several different things. So they also had like not specified disorder, autism, I think. I'm not sure. So I'll look it up for you, and I'm actually interested myself. But
I was just curious if like there was maybe
a certain reason.
Yeah, like they were like, it's like all sourced from like the same sort of, I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I'm not too sure. But they kind of encompassed them all. I don't know. We still don't know the cause at all. I've done lots of research on that. It's all over the place, man. But I did read a lot of stuff that is has supported older moms, younger dads, younger moms, so a large disparity in the ages, which is pretty neat, but that doesn't, you can't put every case in there, so it's not the cause. So, what else have I talked about?
I have 2 questions.
What's up?
I
Yes.
have more questions than 2.
Yes.
So you said this other kid, the high-functioning 6-year-old, was diagnosed with Asperger's before it was taken out of the DSM. So I have 2 questions. What is Asperger's and why was it taken out of the DSM?
I don't know why exactly it was taken out of the DSM, actually. But your Asperger's kid is your Rain Man. It's your very, very well knowledged on a certain topic, but he still has the social deficits where he can't really carry on a conversation. This kiddo, for example, a kid comes up and he's like, hey, like, what superhero do you want to be? And he's like, the bottlenose spider, like name some very discreet little, and so he can't make friends because there's not other 6-year-olds that know what kind of the most, abundant snake here in Austin, because that's all he wants to talk about, so he keeps reverting it back to that.
But he's like interested in socializing, or does he just ignore other kids?
He actually is. There's a lot of kiddos that aren't at all, and then that's where it's, we really have to take a step back. So we start by having kids play over there. So you play with your favorite thing, that kid plays with their favorite thing way over there. And then we start, getting a little bit closer, and then we start playing right next to each other, but still, you're playing with your thing, you're playing with your thing. We're trying to associate the kids with good things. And then we'll put in a goal, something like accepts reinforcer from peer. So, because a lot of the time, a peer comes over, kid starts freaking out, doesn't want anything to do with them. But one good step or a good way to show them, like, hey, this kid is actually kind of cool, is like, hey, wait, what's his favorite candy again? Or oh, he loves that toy. Having another peer come over and just hand it to him. All he has to do is take it. So it's little steps like that where you get the kid to like and to care about other kids. That's our job, is to pair them with good things, pair ourselves with good things. Let's see. Okay, some fun facts that you may know or may not know that I threw in here are that, according to CDC, autism affects 1 in 59 children in the United States. And it is 1 in 37 boys and 1 in 151 girls. So we do have a lot more male clients than we do female, at least since I've been there, and that's always, it's usually the case. Let's see, they have a lot of comorbid health issues, which is interesting for me because we have to stay in contact with other professionals. So they have GI, gastrointestinal disorders, they have seizures, sleep disturbances, a lot of them, ADHD, anxiety, phobias. So it's our job it's important for us to say, hey, this isn't my area of expertise, I can't say, you need to go see a neurologist. And then the neurologist and I will, or after I pass my exam, but the neurologist and my supervisor will be in contact and say, hey, these are issues that you need to take into consideration before you apply whatever intervention you may apply. Let's see. It's present from early childhood, so if you don't know, you're born with it. And then the most obvious signs are between 2 and 3, but diagnoses now are being given as early as 18 months. When I started, which was close to 3.5, between 3.5 and 4 years ago, we would get clients, our average age client that would come in was 6. We'd just get 6-year-old kiddos, and we dealt with it there, and it was very hard, because if you think about it, you've got 6 years of behavior that's learned, that we have to unlearn that and teach them to do something else. So it's a lot harder. My supervisor she specializes in babies, so the younger kiddos. And so that's been my area for the past year. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, the babies, oh no, and they're easier. I think they're a lot easier, personally. My 14-year-old was actually probably the hardest because he came in at 7 years old, and he had services, but like I said, it's so much more aggressive behavior that has gotten them. For example, he's learned that instead of tapping somebody and going to his iPad and clicking this, and asking for his popsicle, he can just look at you, stand over next to the fridge, and bite himself very aggressively. Because what does somebody do? Like, you just say, oh, wait, what is it? What do you want? What do you want this? Do you want? So it's learned. He's like, I'd rather, it's a lot less effort for him. Yes, okay, so, oh yeah, good thing. Okay, so diagnoses are being given a lot earlier now. Okay, so like I was saying, where I started about 4 years ago, our average kid is 6. Now we're getting a lot of assessments that are, we've got the 18-month-year-olds, we've got the 20-month-year-olds, we've got the 21-month-year-olds, which is amazing. And I think that has a lot to do with, fortunately, the research that has come out that supports early intervention with these kiddos. Because doctors, and I'm sure it was part of the culture. I don't think they meant wrong or anything, but if there was a very standard, oh, it'll come. Oh, your child is 2 and he's not talking, it'll come. Oh, your child is 3 and he doesn't look at you, no worries, it'll come. It was kind of just the culture. And then a lot of studies were coming out, and it's like, oh wow, if you get your kid an ABA earlier, you get better results, or you get them faster, and that sort of thing. And because of that research, now doctors are, before just saying, oh, please don't worry about it, come back, they're like, oh, red flag, okay, yeah, let's get you to a specialist, or let me talk to the neurologist and see if he can get you a diagnosis.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
If about 1 in 50 kids today are diagnosed with autism, then that to me says that 1 in 50 adults today probably would have been diagnosed with autism when they were children.
Uh-huh.
And they would have gone untreated now till adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
So where are those adults now? Have they, by and large, many of them gotten better? Or is it the case that 1 in 50, 1 in 100 adults require a lot of care? Are they in care homes, or were they with their families?
So there's a lot of our parents, I'm like, oh, you're on the spectrum. I'm trying to talk to you about your kid, and you will not look at me. If you were to have a conversation with me, you say, yeah, he's had a good day. And I'm like, and so, I just naturally, start looking away, and I'm like, okay, well, how did he sleep? But I'm like, oh, there's something here that either nobody talked to you about or nobody said anything. So there's parents that I think they're on the spectrum and don't say anything or aren't told anything, right? And then there's, what was your question again?
I guess it was 2 questions. One is kind of, does the severity improve in some sense without interventions, even if interventions help more? And also, are there a lot of severely autistic adults and they're just in care homes and we are not as aware of this issue?
The issue is that there's not a lot of services for adults with autism, unfortunately. So I told myself I would do this for maybe 6 years max, and then I would move to adulthood, because there's a big need for it. Unfortunately, that's not where the research is. That's not where, and because of that, that's not where a priority is. So kids turn 18 and nobody knows what to do with them. It's really sad. So I would say they're almost, I don't want to say undocumented for, but in a way, they're not being, because there's not any services now. I can't imagine, you know, if you take your 50-year-old with autism, there wasn't anything for him. So, what's up?
Is the temple granting somebody who has done work on, well, people who, you know, have to operate in the adult world, and how they can, you know, find jobs or things which are, you know,
What
they
was
might
the
be
first
able to
part?
do. I mean, Temple Grandin, you know her, she's the person who, yes, I think based in Colorado, and she has some issues like that, and she has done, given all kinds of talks, I mean, TED
Okay.
Talks and stuff like
Okay,
that.
okay.
And she has also advocated for jobs and kind of lifestyle things, like things that people can walk to work, and, you know, the types of works that they'll be good
Yes,
at.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they help them, give them skills to get, you know, your job at Hobby Lobby, that you know, behind the register, but you learn at least how to kind of, people with, adults with severe autism will never really be, I shouldn't say that, but it is very unlikely that they'll be 100% independent, you know, paying their bill on time and paying, and no, they're gonna need assistance. There's homes right now. One of our clients, it's actually really sad, he has very neglectful parents, and we've actually had to make calls to, you know, services to say, hey, I think neglect is happening in the household. I don't know if this kiddo is safe. Like, he's a client that would come in. He exited out because he was getting too old. But he is a client where he would come in and we would lift his shirt every day and make sure he didn't have any bruises or anything. But for example, parents, they didn't take the time to understand what autism was. They didn't care that this kid is just, they were like, he doesn't talk to me, all he does is every time I buy him an iPad, he throws it out the window, and they were just very frustrated with him and didn't understand him, didn't take the time to. So when they went home, he would go into his room and just stim, which I'll get into, but it's repetitive, those repetitive patterns of behavior. So he grabs like a piece of string, like a shoelace or something, and just does this, and he does it all day long. And so we tried to keep him, we actually kept him way longer than we should have, because I think our owner had sympathy for the client. But he is now, he's 14, right? And he's not required to go, or there was alternative routes for him, whether it be in-home therapy and stuff like that, but the parents put him in a home. So they just kind of chose to leave him out there. An interesting part is that when they turn 18, they're adults, and our ABA therapy, which I'll get into, for example, if you tell them, hey, you need to clean your room, or hey, you need to put this. Can I look this?
No.
Okay. For example, I almost smacked it the other side. Okay. You tell him, you go, hey, I need you to put this over here, right? He starts flipping out, everything he can do to not do that, because he doesn't feel like it, doesn't want to, wants to have control of the situation, whatever it is. What we do is, hey, you're not going anywhere. You're not going to get any of these things until you put this over there, right? And we're trying to teach them, you need to do these sorts of things. When you're 18, in these sorts of homes, they're adults, right? So you can't make them do anything. You can't have them, so it gets actually very tricky and very hard, because you can't have him. You can't force him to go brush his teeth. You can't force him to wash his face. So it gets very difficult, and I think that's why there's not a lot of services, because there's not a lot of services that can prove to be successful. So it's a problem. But like I said, I'm thinking 6 years, and then I'll do that for some time. Let's see. Okay, what is ABA? Really quickly, so our whole science, what we believe, is that there's 4 functions of behavior, right? So there's 4 and only 4 reasons why you would do anything. The first one is access to tangibles or activities. The second one is to escape or avoid demands. The third is access to attention. And then the fourth is automatic. So it's automatically reinforcing. So your classic, you can think of masturbation, for example. Automatically reinforcing. So that's our science, that's what we go off of, that's how we handle behavior. You have a kid who, say I'm talking to you and I'm really just giving you all of my attention and I'm like telling you to give me a high five and we're having a great time, and you're another autistic kid, let's say, who starts lifting up the table and freaking out, right?
Should I do this?
Yeah. So, what a person normally does, who's not, practicing, will be like, oh, what's going on? Is everything okay? Can I help you with anything, right? What we do is, we know, it's like, I'll look at you, you're looking at me, I'm giving him attention. You start flipping the table, I'll still be talking to you and I'll say, Andy, and until you say Andy and you're calling my attention, you're calling for my attention appropriately, say Andy.
Andy?
Yes, what is it? What is it? What can I help you with?
I want this table moving.
Right. So it's like that. Or we'll teach them, if I'm a little bit closer, I'll do like one of these, right? And I'm still talking to you and I'm still saying, hey man, like what's going on? Like give me a high five. Give me a high five. They're not getting it, right? They start going like this to themselves. They're not understanding. And I'm like, so they don't have language, right? And so I'm like, hey, like what's going on? Dude, do you want this? Like, do you want this? I grab his hand and I go, hey, what's up, dude? And so that is kind of how we teach them, right? So that, for example, you're flipping the table for attention. Okay, now let's say you really want to erase the board, right? So you're looking at the eraser and you are flipping the table. Right? I'll be like, eraser. Give me the eraser. And until you repeat, give me the eraser.
Give me the eraser.
I give you the eraser, you go up there and you go erase what you want to do, right? So very clear cut. It can just last 45 minutes and it can be exhausting. Yeah, to say the least. So that would be your access to tangible. And I'm giving you very clear cut examples. I'll give you some examples where the functions change and then we have to adapt and we change it all. So I tell you, hey, I'll just be like, hey, will you go open the door? You start. So I go over, I'd be like, open the door. Go open the door. Open the door, right. And if I need to pick you up, I would come behind you and I'd pick you up and I'd physically guide you there. Perfect. And then we're done. So that would be the example of avoidance. And it can get really handsy. It can get really tricky. It can be exhausting to the back. because you could be on the floor, which is what I was doing before this, and I'm just prompting you from behind, and I'm telling you, open the door, open the door, open the door. We're teaching them you can't get out of it this way, not this way. Because they've already, once they go into behavior, it's like, oh man, you just messed up. Like, you don't get anything fun anymore, all these options. And what we do a lot of the time is antecedent intervention. So we say, hey, so first you're gonna go open the door, and then we get to go take a walk outside. So we do a lot of that. So a lot of promises, or they're playing with something and then they're reaching for their next favorite toy. I'll be like, all right, hey, go open the door. Right? And then so we try to intervene that way. So we want to catch it beforehand. But I'm like, you're reaching for the toy, and I'm like, go open the door. You start throwing a fit. This is like, I like throw it away. I'm like, this isn't a choice. I put it right behind me. And then it's like, go open the door. Go open the door. What's up?
So it seems like a lot of these techniques or strategies like use incentives or like there's like a very specific mechanism involved. So do you also teach the parents to use these or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so we have, our clinic now, when I first started, we did both in-home and in-clinic. But now we have parent meetings at least once a week. So they come in and they observe, and we, slowly put them in, and then they practice. So we start showing them, this is what we do, and now we want you to, we're gonna have you look. Okay, now we're gonna have you go in and practice, and we guide them. And it's very hard. For example, we were trying to show a kiddo, we're like, oh, he's awesome at waiting, where at first, when you first said wait, he starts freaking out, right? And I'm like, you need to wait. And we started at 0 seconds. So it was, wait, here you go. Wait, nice job waiting. He's like, let's run. Wait, come on, let's go run, right? Then we go 1 second, then we go 3 seconds, then we go 5 seconds, then we're 10, then we're 15, then we're 20. And so I had told Mom, I'm like, I was like, he's waiting 45 seconds right now. He sits there and he goes, and he sits and waits. The same kid that used to scream wait. And they're like, what are you doing? Like, I can't even say the word wait. I just say, 1 minute, and he'll be like, 1 minute, like starts freaking out, and they freak out too. And I'm like, he's 3. He can't do anything. It's okay. They're scared, right? They don't want to upset him. But for example, yeah. So the first step was to have them come in and watch. So we're like, hey, we're going to show you how we run the weight trials. So all we want you to do is come in and sit down. We're going to run it. You just, this was Dad actually. Dad and the analyst, and then it's the client and his therapist. And he goes, he's like, get bouncy ball. And he's like, okay, you need to wait. He immediately looks at Dad and goes, wait, where he hasn't had behavior in weeks. He hasn't had any issue with us, but because Dad is there and he knows, Dad knows, well, wait, what is it? Here, just take it. He immediately looks over at Dad and he goes, wait, and starts freaking out. And we're like, okay, this is what we kind of thought would happen. So then we have to kind of pair Dad, so, the analyst immediately was like, don't make eye contact, look away, and that's it. And so he's looking at him, he's like, wait, like trying to do all these things, and Dad's like, are you sure it's okay? It's fine. He's just sitting there. He's not in danger. He's not in trouble. It's okay. And so, but we were honestly caught off guard. We're like, you're waiting for 45 seconds and you're killing it. Your graph looks beautiful. I'm such a nerd on graphs. So I'm like, your graph is like, oh, it's looking fantastic. So first step was, what's up?
Quick question.
Yes.
So some of these other incentive techniques that you were talking about seems like you would have to tell them something, like using language. Do most of these kids understand what you're telling them, but they just are not very willing to follow immediately?
So sometimes they don't know what it means, and we teach them. We follow through with behavior and everything, but we're teaching at the same time. Sometimes they know, but they're choosing not to. So it can be both. What's up?
So with these random tasks, do you also use tasks like, that would be productive for them? Like,
Oh, we
watch
always,
your
we
face
always
thing?
try to do it that way. We always try to do it that way. We just try to get many, many trials in. And if there aren't several occasions where a kid would have asked for something, we try to make something super, super, super fun to where they would want it. So we always try to go for the most natural occurring thing, right? So, oh, okay, here, push your chair in, or here, okay, here, go put your lunchbox out, right? We try to do it that way, but if, let's say, because they're 2-hour sessions, if at the end of the 2-hour sessions, you only have 3 out of the 5 trials that you need to complete, these kids need practice. If it were up to me, I'd be like 15 trials on everything. But it's a lot, it's a lot. So yes, we try to make it as natural as possible, but if we can't, then we start creating these more contrived situations. But for the most part, we tell therapists, try to make it as natural as possible.
And do you typically just, how do you curate like the types of habits you're trying to instill? Like, is it the same, do you have like a baseline that you want to establish for all like children? Or?
Yes, like a client that will come in, like a brand new client, we start off with, so the first step is behavior management. We need to get their behavior under control. The way we do those things are adaptive skills. So that's things like wait, accepting no, transitioning, interrupting, things like that. So that's the first thing that we do whenever a kiddo comes in. And parents are like, we don't say the word. And so we had a client, and we had dad come in, and we're like, okay, come in. We're gonna practice accepting no because she's doing really well here. She does awesome. You say no, but you can have this. She's like, okay, and she takes it. Dad won't say no. He's too scared. He's too scared to say no. So we're like, okay, first things first, just say no. So he comes in, and we're like, we're coming in, and she wants something, and he's like, just 1 minute. Okay, sweetheart. We're like, no. 1 minute, sweetheart. Hold on.
So,
Just say the word no.
so like
They won't
the
say it.
parent is so like they're with you and they're like unable to have.
Because they don't do it. They don't do it. They don't know. They haven't practiced it. They're scared of the behavior. They're whatever it is.
So I guess in the example you gave where like the dad came in, all of a sudden like the old behavior, like the child reverted to that, knowing that that would be effective on the dad.
The weight.
Yeah, the
It's
weight.
a different line. Yeah. the
So
weight.
how much are you able to generalize this behavior for new people? Like, do they realize that like, you know, most random people, like in a grocery store or something, if they start to bite their arm, will likely just react and not have this same measured response?
Yeah, so we try to promote generalization, and the way we do that is having these 2-hour sessions. So they have already 3 different people on Monday, Wednesday,
okay.
Friday, and they have 3 other different people on Tuesday and Thursday.
Gotcha.
So we've already gotten it across 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 different people, right? So that's the way we try to promote generalization. And then we do it in one room, and then we go to another room, and that's how we're promoting generalization in settings. And then we have parents come in, but that also has to do with generalization across people. So yeah, so it kind of comes in that way. So the first step, we were like, oh, we're not, because we were going to have dad practice saying wait. We couldn't do that. We were like, you know what, we'll save this for next week. Right now, all we need you to do is sit there, say wait, and him tolerate you being around. The next one will be him saying wait. And every time he has behavior or goes, wait, 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 he goes, you need to wait. And he does it again. And you start the timer back over again. So it's like, it kind of works like that.
I have a question. You're giving a lot of examples of how the behavior gets reinforced by parents who sort of give in to the child, or they're trying to take care of the child and make sure they're not getting hurt, respond to their tantrums. What kinds of problems arise if the parents are actually kind of the other way around, if they punish the child a lot for these kinds of behaviors? Like, obviously this could get into abusive situations, but I'm just curious, you know.
Yes, I'll say that doesn't happen very often, because parents just tend to be very scared of the kid's behavior. They're like, oh, he grabbed my arm. I'm like, this kid's too. He can't really hurt you. But then we had a parent who she's been very interesting to work with. It's actually the mother of the client that I was telling to stand up, and early, you know, at the very beginning, which is why I was late. Stand up, stand up. And it's not her fault, but she does not know what autism is. She doesn't get it. I've tried to explain it to her in layman's terms. We've given her literature. We've given her support groups and everything that we can. She doesn't get it, and I think it's a little bit of denial. And so we've got this mom who, this kiddo is, I mean, he has zero skills. We've gotten him to, we're teaching him to sign. He makes eye contact to request for things right now. He has no language. So the way he wants something is you're holding something and he just looks at you. But that's amazing, because when he first got here, it was all, what he likes to do is rock. So he likes to like sit up and rock, and it looks like this, but he likes to he has all like scars on his back because he rocks in his crib. He has a very low functioning kiddo, right? And so he doesn't have many skills. We've taught him how to stand up. We've taught him how to tap your hand if he wants something. We've taught him how to make eye contact. We've taught him how to play with something for 2 minutes, which is incredible, because he would normally play with something for, the average was like 2 seconds, 3 seconds, drop it, go to the next thing. He didn't know how to play with things. So we've got this kid, for example, who's very low functioning, and mom came in the next day and was like, hey, I told him to clean up all the mess that he made, and he wouldn't do it, so I locked him in his room and I took away all his toys. I was like, oh, he doesn't know what cleanup means. He doesn't have those skills. You're not teaching at this point. It's punishment without teaching, right? So that's a situation where, like, the over punishment, I guess, first thing that came to mind. But I will say, for the most part, parents are just very scared, and you don't really run into that very often. Yes.
So kind of as a follow-up, I knew somebody who had a child like that, and they made great sacrifices, and they moved to Dallas to put him into a school where he could go. Apparently there are very few of such schools. But what ended up happening is that their other child, who was normal, for whatever reason, I mean, I'm kind of thinking that, you know, their parenting skills atrophied, or they couldn't make the switch from normal to, you know, autistic child. So that child ended up getting into trouble, the normal child.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering, is there any literature on that, or is this like a studied problem, or how do parents manage, you know,
Yes.
dealing with a child like that to dealing with one who's supposed to be, you know, normal?
It's actually funny that you say that. I'm thinking of the siblings, or of my clients personally, where their siblings are typical, and they get into trouble. They have hard lives. I don't know, if you want to write down your email or something, I will look up the literature, because I'm actually very interested to answer your question, you know, correctly. But yeah, I think they tend to give in, because these kids are smart, and they push, and they know, they keep pushing until the parent gives in. So because of that, the parent probably does that with the other kiddos, right? So yeah, I'll write you though, because I want to look it up myself. Yeah. Let's see. How much time do I have? A few minutes?
You have as long as you want.
Yeah. Let's see. I think we had a nice little talk just then. I don't know, if there's one thing that I ask that you take from this whole thing, is just to continue to ask questions and continue to, you'd be raising awareness in that sort of way. The fact that we were getting clients at 6 years old just 3-4 years ago, and now we're getting 18-month-year-olds is amazing. That's because it's not a shift. It's a shift in medical, right? So doctors had to adjust, and doctors had to change, and so there's a lot of things, but a lot of it has to do with people just asking, what is it? And it's okay that your kid has autism now. Now what do we do? You know, because we have many clients where mom's on board, dad won't come in, dad won't make eye contact, dad won't look, dad doesn't think he should be here. He's fine. I'm thinking one of my clients. He's just a little boy. He's 2.5. Yes, he's 2.5. He's little. But the second a kid walks into the room, he throws a tantrum. That's not fine. You know, kids are interested in other kids. Kids want to look back, and you know, and so so I would say just continue to ask questions. That would be my, I guess, only request from you guys. Just to keep it up and just keep making it okay, so that more research comes out and so that parents feel okay to talk about it, because it's an issue, even with families of different cultures. So we run into that pretty frequently. We have a client, they're from Africa, and mom tells everybody that he's in speech, you know, instead of behavior therapy. And so we run into that, and of course, like the cultural stuff it's actually very hard. Or you know, they're like, oh, our neighbors, we just tell him that they don't want to say that he has autism, you know, because that's looked down upon in their country, and a lot of it's because they don't have research, they don't have services. Yeah. So what's that?
I'm curious about the diagnosis process. So how, like, what does that typically look like? And now that they're being diagnosed at a younger age, are there ever times when like you get a kid who comes in and you're like, actually maybe it's not autism? I mean, in which case it's fine, right? Because it's rather like false negatives and false positives, or one of the two, right?
Yes, no, yes. Sometimes we get kiddos in and we're like, oh my gosh, he has a lot of skills. He knows how to label 200 different things. He knows how to answer interverbal questions, which are things like, what's your name? How old are you? Things like that. He has all these skills, but he doesn't know how to maintain like a social relationship. So working on that. What was the second part of your question?
Well, so it's okay. So maybe in that case, like, how maybe would that child have been identified or referred? Like, would it be like he'd be just like at the doctor with general prac?
Okay.
Yeah, and like.
It's all over the place. A lot of kids are diagnosed. They're being diagnosed early now, but a lot of them have gotten comfortable. So you see, like, oh, grandma's been taking care of them for the last 3 years. So parents have gotten just kind of used to, and it's like, oh my gosh, you can't believe your kid's 6 years old, but he could have had therapy for the past 3 years. There's, for example, at 2 months, a typical 2-month-year-old will share eye gaze with you. So it's mutual gaze, right? They'll look back at you. They'll reciprocate. So you smile, they smile. You act surprised, they act surprised. A lot of these kids that get the diagnoses, they're 18 months, 20 months, 24 months, they will not look at you. You smile at them and they don't do anything back. So that's a really strong kind of detector of, I think your kiddo has autism. The other ones who kind of not fall through the cracks but aren't diagnosed right away, they haven't been pushed to be in social situations. So as opposed to, or haven't been offered a lot of toys to play with. So a lot of these kids, they don't know how to play with toys, but they also don't have a lot of toys to play with. And that's the great thing about coming to a clinic, and there's toys everywhere, all over every single wall. Because it's like, we have to get you to play with something and we need to teach you how to play. Or they'll come in and they haven't been, instead of, going to the public pool like they normally would, they stay inside. They don't go away. They don't go to Walmart together. Mom just goes to Walmart and they have to call grandma or dad or maybe somebody to come in, and they don't push them. So then once it's like, okay, this kid's like 5, 6 years old, like he has to go to Walmart with me, there's nobody to watch him, then it's kind of like, oh, this is a problem. You know, he can't stand to be around people. He can't stand to. I wanted to take him to a birthday party, but he bit the birthday boy, and now I don't ever want to go back. You know, so a lot of these kids aren't pushed, and then once they are, that's kind of when they're like, a lot of it's in denial at first, and then they're kind of like, okay, what's up, doctor? You know.
And so then if they go to the doctor will refer them to like a neurologist, and he'll make the official diagnosis?
Yeah, neurologists are typically the ones who make the diagnoses, or psychiatrists.
How does a neurologist make the diagnosis of autism? What do they look at?
I don't know how the diagnosis process goes exactly, actually. I'm not quite sure. Yeah.
I had a two-part question. One was for the mom, where you were saying she was having trouble understanding autism. Like, how do you explain it to someone who maybe isn't familiar with it at all? Like, what's the basic explanation? Because you're saying like there's this huge range of behaviors, and
Yes.
it seems like
Yes.
sort of challenging to kind of capture all that in like a definition.
Yes, absolutely. It always depends on how this person is, right? So she's very kind of hard to work with because, one, we're working with somebody who's completely in denial. She thinks her little boy is the sweetest, greatest thing, but she also really resents him because she wants to give him a kiss and he won't kiss her. He can't even be hugged. We're working on it, and now he can be tickled and stuff like that, but he used to not even be able to hold your hand or anything. So this is a parent, for example, where we tried, you know, he's gonna need support for the next couple of years, and mom is like, he's gonna need ABA probably for the rest of his life, I would say, or some sort of support system. Mom would come in once every 2 weeks and say, okay, so is he gonna be fine to go to school by next year? Is he gonna, and we're like, oh my God, I thought we had just gone over it. She forgets, she's in denial. She forgets what we told her, she's not listening. She's not listening, and she's very an interesting person. She's all about herself too, and so she's a very interesting person. But we're dealing with, you know, a person that's in denial, and we spent weeks of every week saying very nicely, you know, he's gonna need a lot of support. It's like, when is he gonna start talking? I need to know when he's gonna start talking. When is he gonna be cured? And we're like, oh, this isn't that sort of. And so it was weeks of saying, he's not going to be cured, he's going to be treated, you know, for a long period, or for period of time. We're helping him out, but hey, like you also don't want to discourage them, right? We say, hey, but he's making progress. He's looking at you. He's reaching for you. He's asking. So kind of going about it that way. Until you have to we had to break it to her. She was like, okay, so is it going to be fine to go to school next year, after months of the same conversation? And my supervisor had to be like, look. And she grabbed the owner, and the owner was like, look, honey, he's gonna need support for the rest of his life. He's not gonna be able to go to school next year or the year after. And she had to be really, really harsh, because it was like, wow, we've been trying to tell you this every week for 3 months, and you're asking the same question that you did 3 months ago. So it can vary. It can be very different. For a personality type like that who's in denial, you have to be very, very harsh, or we had to be. So it can vary.
So, but how would you define autism, I guess, like, just if you were meeting somebody who maybe has no stake in it one way or the other?
I would probably say they have a really hard time communicating. Because of this, they tend to go to maladaptive behavior. Or if I'm talking to like just, you know, like I'd be like, he has a really hard time communicating his wants and his needs and what he wants to say or what he needs. And so he tends to go to other behaviors like biting himself and falling on the floor. And he doesn't really want anything to do with other peers or other people. So we need to make sure that we are associating peers and people with good things, and that's why we try to get them to request. That's like, so after the adaptive, I think you asked about what's the first thing you do, it's like the adaptive, the accepting, no, wait, whatever. With that, it's always paired with requesting. So that's the first thing that we're doing, because we're trying to say like, hey, I'm cool. You need things from me. Because if it were up to them, they would just function independently on their own and be in their room all day long. But that's not how the world works. You know what I mean? That's not, and that's our job, is really to be like, people are great. You need people to be successful. But yeah, I went on a little rant. But yeah, and so I'd be like, you know, they have a hard time communicating. And we need to replace these behaviors with more better behaviors, right? So instead of the rocking, we're going to show them how to either run around, or we're going to show them how to play with things. So it's a lot of, that's what I would probably say to a parent.
And the other question I had was related to, like, I know, for example, one of the improv theaters in town has like a class, I think, specifically for kids with autism. And I wondered like how art or theater or things like that, if you've seen that be effective, and like how they're doing that versus what you guys do to help people with autism.
I'm always very, very supportive of combining therapies. So do it all, do what you can. It's just not, some parents are great. Some parents are amazing and they try everything, and they've tried this diet and they tried this, and they're in OT and they're in speech and they're in behavior, but a lot of parents don't know what to do. So it's my job to support scientifically kind of proven therapy. You know, a parent that came in talking about how she's trying aromatherapy with him. And I'm not going to say that hasn't been proven to work.
Right.
What I'll say is, okay, all right, have you seen any changes? No, not yet. Okay, well, if there's, and we won't practice them here in the clinic, right? But let me know how it goes. I support you. You know, how's this new scent? Did he sleep better? He did? Okay, great. Right, so we're very supportive. We're not going to say don't do that. We'll be very supportive, but it's important for us to know, so we're mindful of, you know, the sorts of things that are happening.
But do you feel like art and theater would fall into that category of like using sense? Is it that far away from actually being beneficial, or is it actually helpful, similar to what you guys are doing?
I think it would be very helpful, because there's a lot of aspects in that to where, so for example, like taking just like the art or the therapy or the theater, for example, you're exposing them to social situations, which is essentially what we're doing, right? So I completely support it. Alone, I don't know. You know what I mean? So
Right,
it's
right.
like pair it with something else, pair it with ABA, pair it with in-home therapy, pair it with something else is kind of how I would go about it.
It sounds like the parents like need to play a pretty integral role. Do you have like a formal setting where you try and explain like sort of like the paradigm you use, or like some of the techniques and why, and like how much time are you teaching the adults?
Not enough time.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll come in. It's kind of a funny, classic little. It's insurance, kind of. It runs by insurance, right? So insurance requires at least 1 hour, or they only require once a month. But it's like, no, this parent needs to come in more than once a month. So then that's where it gets kind of tricky for us. And if we feel like we need to provide more therapy, then we will. But then that gets kind of tricky because it goes into relationships, you know, like exploitative relationships where you're kind of helping where you shouldn't be. It's a professional thing. But they come in, most of them come in an hour a week. They come in, we let them know how they're doing, we want to know how they're doing at home, and we have to take steps. So sometimes they come in and look, sometimes they can come in right off the bat and jump in and model what we're doing because they're very responsive. Sometimes they don't take our feedback. And so we're sitting there like, okay, wait till he looks at you. The kid's like this, and she's like, bubbles! And we're like, you need to wait, just hold on, just wait until he makes eye contact with you and then go. Kid's like walking around just like, bubbles! And we're like, I had to be like, oh here, put it down. Just put it down for a second. And then this is like, you know, and then the kid finally like looks at her and she's like, he just looked at me. And I was like, blow the bubbles, blow the bubbles. So, you know, you've got some kids, some parents that are a lot more responsive than others, and some that need more assistance than others. But we try to get them in at least an hour a week. Yeah.
So I don't know, excuse me, if you've heard of this thing which is anecdotal that supposedly in Silicon Valley over time, over 40, 50 years, people who have, you know, basically married, there's a higher percentage of kids, you know, maybe the parents already were high functioning, you know, and so supposedly the proportion of kids with those issues is higher in the Bay Area, and I'm assuming Austin is also a place where, you know, you have a lot of, you know, mental workers and, you know, people who work in the software industry and things like that. So as opposed to the, I don't know, West Texas, you know, some towns. So is there any study which, you know, studies the concentration of what places, you know, you would find higher proportion of people with these types of issues?
More industrial cities have more services. They tend to, but they're popping up. It's great. It's because it's going to provide a lot of jobs because it's increasing. Right, autism is increasing, so we see the rate increasing, and because of that, there's going to be a career path. There's going to be careers for people. So they're popping up. But I mean, if you, for example, I mean, I can't give you statistics of like number of clinics here and compared to like some podunk city in Montana or something, right? But it's a lot less. So and even internationally, they're thankfully getting. We're moving forward as a whole, because I think a lot more people are asking about autism and asking, you know, exactly what is it? Because instead of just asking and then getting a bunch of different responses and still being like walking away from the conversation and being like, oh, I still don't really know what it is. People are, but why? But what is that? What would you tell a parent? I don't really get it. Because of all those questions, I think people are doing more research and then creating more clinics in cities that didn't, not even 5 years ago.
This is the second Molotov seminar on autism, and the first one was given by an autistic kid.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but I mean, he's like, I mean, if he didn't tell you in most brief interactions, you wouldn't even know he was autistic. But he did kind of do a rundown of all his.
Did he kind of go into sensory and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's the first time I learned about what stimming is. We were in the same class together. It was the meditation class. It was Manuel Diaz. I don't know if you remember. Anyway, he sat in the back. One time I noticed him in class. He was like, oh, I can't deal with this forever. Anyway, but he is a member of this group called Texas Neurodiversity.
Okay.
And he's the author of a blog called Neurodivergencia Latina.
Okay.
And he has like he's very well connected to a lot of people. It was the most. I mean, the turnout was the biggest among all Molotov seminars.
Amazing.
I started finding posters for this Molotov seminar that I hadn't put up.
Yeah.
Was in the psychology building. I was like, okay, this guy's gonna be good for Molotov. Anyway, I asked him to come to this. I don't think he got the message in time. Okay. Anyway, I was just.
Oh, I wish he would have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a few because I go to the. Need to get something to drink. To the conferences each year, and so I've seen some. Actually, one speech given by a guy with autism that he's gotten a lot more. He's gotten a lot better, but that was huge for him to go in front of a a room of like 200, 250 people, and give a speech was, I cried the whole time. But yeah, no, that's amazing. It's amazing. I wish I could have made it.
What is stimming?
Stimming, so it's repetitive behaviors, patterns of, a lot of people with autism, sorry, my allergies, have this quality or characteristic, and a few stems, like, so I'm thinking of my clients, right? One of my clients does this all day long, and he finds it very, very, very reinforcing. There's a study that I read a couple years ago that would equate it to masturbation, which is very interesting. So that's always, to me, I've always been interested in that part, and man, it's very, very hard to compete with. It's very hard to intervene because it's automatically reinforcing, right? So we try to give them replacement behaviors. So instead of doing this, we'll be like, here, try this, right? So it's a lot more socially acceptable. We're like, but you still have an outlet. For example, another kid loves to, he's like one of the kids that came in just spitting left and right because he loved to watch things fall, right? So he's like hugs a loogie and then just like stays there, and he looks at it like this, like he'll just be like, and I'm like, what are you feeling? What did you pass? You're in bliss right now. So we'll give him the replacement behavior of like, he'll do that, and we'll be like, here, we'll give him a, like a spray bottle with water in it. We'll be like, here, we'll spray it. So instead of doing that, we'll block that, and then quickly go into that. And so then that's sort of the replacement behavior, because that's a lot better than spitting and then staring at it. And then we fade it out. So then it's like, okay, instead of doing this every single time you do it, now you get to work for it. So now you get to, you have to earn your tokens or do whatever it is, do this amount of steps, and then you can get this. And then it's like, oh, no, we can't work for this, but you can work for this. And so it's kind of like replacement behavior, and then kind of fading it back. But yeah, it's repetitive.
So in that process, would you ever run into a problem where they would revert back to the original behavior? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so like once you're like withholding the object
Yes.
that's now replacing it, they're like, oh, screw that, we'll just go spit.
Yes.
Are there any research into drugs or that kind of intervention that is being worked at?
Not specifically for autism,
Like
no.
pharma,
No, a lot of kiddos have ADHD, and so they're given that. We personally advise to hold off as long as possible. We are required to say, this isn't exactly my area of expertise, but if we can slip in, maybe wait a little bit, then we do. Just to see, let's see if this works without meds first. But specifically for autism, is there a medicine? No.
I was gonna ask you about
And I didn't.
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say on the highest end of the spectrum, are there people that you encountered who are just living pretty much normal life because they're so high functioning that for example, I didn't see the talk, but it seems like there could be people where you wouldn't even know, or have you seen a lot of examples of that? I guess is what I'm
There are a few. I had one client, we got him out in 2 years, which is amazing. And he came in, it's not like he was very low functioning, but he did this all day long. He just wanted to walk everywhere. Anytime you'd present kids or you'd say, here, we're gonna go play tag with our friends, he would just break down, right? Didn't know, wasn't talking quite yet. He'd just be like, and in 2 years, we got him talking. We got him talking in full sentences. We got him playing with friends. We used because he didn't want anything to do with them. Because he didn't know, and it's not exactly, yes, there are a lot, but he also doesn't know what to do with them. So we would have him watch. So we'd be like, hey, you can either go play tag, or you can sit and watch. He'd be like, sit and watch. He's like, as long as I don't have to go in there. And then he starts watching and he starts learning, oh, like this kid texts this kid and they play here and then they start laughing and then they like go, you know, and so then over time he would be like, he'd like stand up, you know, and I'd be like, come on, let's go play. And he, I love him so much. I love him so much. And he, after 2 years of intense therapy, so 40 hours a week, no school, mom's a teacher, and so she was like, I really want him to go to school, and we were like, give us 1 year. Give us 1 year with him full time, including summer, everything, and then you can take him. And he's in gen ed now, where he was supposed to be put in. They were planning on special ed. When he first exited, it was like part gen ed, part special ed, and now he's in full gen ed, and he's doing really well. He's playing soccer, and which he had a lot of balancing issues. So now he's playing soccer. He's doing really great. The spectrum really is so wide that I can't say that. Yeah, there's tons of these cases. I will say though that the earlier that they get intervention, the likelihood of them being successful or independent is much higher.
Yeah, because I was thinking about people you might encounter at work or something where like this person is difficult, but maybe they're on the spectrum and people don't know, or maybe they were never diagnosed and you just think they're a difficult person, but they have some kind of challenge that maybe we're not aware of.
Yeah. And I mean, they've done a good way of, they've been taught how to deal with it, cope with it. They've learned. They've learned that, you know, doing certain things is socially awkward, so they've been taught to do something maybe a little bit less socially awkward or something like that. Yeah.
So it sounds like interacting with peers is a pretty integral part of the therapy. Where are you getting the other kids?
So there's some that are more like higher functioning than others.
Okay.
And so they tend to be not separated, but they tend to play with each other. But every once in a while, if there's a kiddo that's a little bit higher functioning and has more language, we'll be like, can we use you for a few minutes? And we'll play and kind of work that way. And then that kiddo who has a lot of language, you know, this one doesn't, can still learn by tapping the kid, you know, and it's a little bit harder because the kid's not always going to respond right away, right? And so this kind of models the behavior of a kid who wouldn't respond right away, so we can teach him that way. You'd still benefit from each other.
So it's mostly all kids in the program that are interacting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's all kids in the program, or like in therapy. Sometimes we're like, if therapists have kids and they're like, oh, they're getting up, so we're like, please bring them in. And so they'll bring them in, and we use the hell out of them. But yeah, but for now, for the most part, yeah, we're using kids in the clinic. Anything else? No? Okay. Thank you so much for listening.